Hello and welcome back to a meeting of the Geek Cabal Whisperings. This is episode 11.
Yes.
We took a week off, so here we are. Today's date is the 19th of October,
I believe so, yes.
2023. So you're listening to us in October 19th of 2024. You know,
You're out of date.
so
You'll,
these topics may not be.
you'll know how some of these things turned out because we're going to talk about some things that don't look good for the companies involved.
Yep. Yeah. So, as far as channel news so far, $2.99.
Yes, right now we're at 299 subscribers. Literally before we started recording was number 299 signed up. Yeah, we got that. A couple shorts. For those of you that want to see just me putting together the Lego set, I condensed it down even farther, and now it's in under a minute. So that short's out there. That's from the Lego Star Wars Stormtrooper mech. And I do have some more sets that we're going to be putting together. Plus, we have the Star Trek sets that Jim bought. Not Lego, I don't know which company they are, but same general. They're building blocks, the same principle. Other than that, we've got 3 more episodes. Well, as of this recording, I had to see how they turn out as far as the order that we release these things. And episode 3 might be out before this recording comes out. But as of this recording, we still have 3 more episodes of the Halloween retrospective. So far, we've covered up to movie 6. The next one is going to, part 3 will cover movies 7 and 8. Part 4 will cover the 2 Rob Zombie movies. And part 5 will cover the 3 more recent ones where Jamie Lee Curtis came back.
Yeah, I'd say, and those out there that were looking for Loki episode 2, or now Loki episode 3, we may try to do a catch up episode to get 2 and 3 in.
Yeah, because from our perspective, 3 is going to be available for streaming here in about a half an hour, and we're obviously going to be in the middle of this. So,
and it's just work and different things makes that really hard to be able to watch at late and do that kind of stuff. So
yeah, we hit a confluence of scheduling events, and I wasn't feeling too great last week, and just a bunch of stuff happened all at once. So
yeah, and honestly, for the thing with Loki though so far has been is it's been nothing but good things. Like there's not like a whole lot of negative talking points yet. And again, not that Ahsoka was a bad show, just Ahsoka had things on both ends of the spectrum. It had a lot to talk about. And not that Loki doesn't. Loki, I think, is more of us now speculating where things are going to go and how things are going to play out. And
yeah, whenever it's competent filmmaking, there's not a whole lot to say other than this was well done. Beyond discussing the details of the plot, obviously. So did you watch the second episode?
I have not got to watch the second episode.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been, like I said, we've been doing a at work event, so I've actually had to go into the office instead of working from home. So hopefully I'll be back to normal things next week.
Yeah, I picked up a couple things at Target the other day, kind of a spin out of our how to begin collecting Lego part 1 video. I talked about some kinds of sets, so I have some examples of them, and we'll do open them up, put them together, talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, and I think one thing I'd like to do with that on that front is I would also like to get one of the knockoff sets so we can show that if it is for a kid and it is for play, those are a decent alternative because of the fact that you can, you don't have to worry about if you lose pieces or that you're spending, $1,000 on some of these sets now because they're so old.
Speaking of which, I don't think we have a picture yet, but I think we have some kind of confirmation that next year we are going to see another massive Lord of the Rings set. The Fortress of Barad-dûr. Like it's a 4,000 plus piece set. So
I guess it's better than a Rings of Power set.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fortress, I don't even know what scale it's going to be because the fortress is like 6 miles high, something like that. It's like literally above the clouds. Which, for medieval architecture, that's a hell of an achievement.
Well, and I always wondered, like So like back like obviously we're still talking channel stuff, but this is just me on random topic. But always hearing about the two trees that lit up Middle Earth. Those things had to be fairly tall and fairly large.
Yeah, but also like they didn't. It's been a while since I read the Cimmerillion, but I don't believe they lit up Middle Earth. They lit up the Grey Havens, which is not as big.
But they must have cast some light, I would assume.
Well, they did. I'm just saying that
No,
like you're
but the,
talking I believe it's a smaller area. It's been a while, but I believe
so
because
so did the two I want to say towers, but the two beacons that they had, because before that they lit up. Didn't they light
what
up Middle Earth with two
well
beacons?
well you had the two trees, and then uh, time for half remembered Cimmerillion stuff here, folks. I don't remember who created the Cimmerals, and the Cimmerals caught the light of the trees within them.
Yeah.
That's why everyone wanted the Cimmerals, and even the elves were. And the Manway was like, "Hey, give me the Cimmerals, we can restart the trees." And the guy's like, "No, fuck off! Like this is like my life's work. Like you ain't getting them."
Well, that's
And
why
then Morgoth
Morgoth.
took him and forged him into his iron crown and everything. So they are like the most beautiful things in all of creation, kind of stuff. But the reason this was important was because Oligont ate the two trees. Oligant's a giant spider, essentially like some cosmic horror
Oh yeah,
from beyond creation kind of
then
things.
tried to eat the Cimmerals, and
Yeah,
Morgoth's like, I don't think so. And then
yeah,
Morgoth had to get rescued by his Balrogs to.
yeah. And I don't remember how they like started the sun after that, but that's what they did if I remember correctly. One of the I think what's one of the high ranking elves basically like took a boat out into space, maybe. Again, it's been a while since I read this. I want to say maybe they had a lantern, and that was like temporarily the sun. Then there was just the sun eventually, something like that. I'll have to reread the Cimmerillion at some point.
Well, I did see a neat fan theory, but then as immediately why it would be debunked, and that was that the Arkenstone was one of the Cimmerals.
Yeah, like whenever Chris and I first watched the movie, I was like, did I miss something from The Hobbit? Like, is that one of the Cimmerals? And
And
he
it's
was like, I don't think it is, but like it's got all the hallmarks of it.
they no, they said that obviously they were lost, and it's always a possibility that it got washed to sea, underground thing made it into the
Yeah,
Lonely Mountain. But the big thing that gave it away that it's not is that they wouldn't be able to hold it because it burns the
yeah,
hands.
yeah.
Um, that's why the one wolf, when it ate the one dude's hand that was holding the Cimmeral, just was like in constant pain because it was just burning his insides.
Well,
Anyways, off topic, but hey, I like to throw a little bit of Lord of the Rings stuff in there.
So yeah, I'm trying to think of what else we have. If we can work out the timing, it might end up being in the first part of November. Now, I don't know. I do still want to do something talking about some of Romero's zombie movies. We're just going to see what time we got. Kind of like I'm hoping all 5 parts of the Halloween series will actually be out by Halloween. I think we can do that because I should be able to record the other two in the same day if I have to. But I'm going to need to make some notes for part 4 because unlike the other movies, Rob Zombie's movies actually had several known actors in them. So I want to make sure I have a reasonably comprehensive list before I just charge into that one. That's the main thing I'm going to need for that. I've watched them enough to remember what's going on in them.
Yeah, I say I want to do another Tales of Collecting episode because again, I like that because it's. I was kind of, not that the Super Scope unboxing was bad, but it was kind of lackluster for me because it wasn't anything on the inside. It was just the gun itself, and that, and learned about checking my lighting before I started filming, but it was still neat because it was in great shape. But yeah, it was kind of lackluster compared to my two NES unboxings, all the pamphlets and stuff that came with that. So I'm going to be looking for my eighth unboxing because I want to get up to that number 10. But um, we're here belching on the podcast. I'm sure people appreciate
Jim, I keep telling you, that's the slice of life these people have flocked to us for.
that. Yeah. Um, no, yeah, but I've got some ideas for the Tales of Collecting about complete sets
Yeah.
of anything. And I thought, heck, if you're here, there's definitely some stuff you could probably add into that about trying to be a completionist.
Oh, yeah. I have some comments on that.
And obviously, in video game collecting, being a completionist is almost impossible because
Well, I would think it would be down to, are you trying to get all the games for a system, or are you trying to get all the games in a series? Because I would think that second one would be easier,
exactly, and
depending on the series,
and
obviously.
in some cases, like the Virtual Boy, which I think only has 21 or 22 officially licensed games, it's possible. But at the same time, you have to understand stuff like Waterworld is like $200 or $300 for just
Yeah.
that game, and then there's some that are like exclusive to other countries.
Oh, that reminds me. I wasn't even going to bring this up, but I was watching a video earlier today, and it came up. I guess here real recently, someone had a original Nintendo like store display unit that had like a bunch of the games, so that you could like play the games
Yeah,
in the store, and like the thing still function and everything perfectly. And I think it sold for something like $7,000.
yeah. So they have one, and I want to say it holds 10 cartridges in it, so you can swap between 10 different games, and it's a display unit. It's not, and I think you can get it without the display, but it's just literally the box, and it's got like a place for 10 cartridges and a way of swapping between.
Yeah.
I don't have anything like that. I wish I did. I wish I had some. Speaking of that, the one thing I saw lately is people buying prototype toys, like molds and stuff of like the original molds of toys.
Yeah, I've seen at various points. I've seen prototypes because there was
I'm like, where the hell do people get these? Because supposedly they're all
the
supposed
factory.
they're all supposed to be destroyed.
Well, let's just say that things that are supposed to be destroyed in Chinese factories rarely are. Let's just be blunt about this. That's what happens. It's the same way. Like you go on.
But these,
I don't know so much about AliExpress for sure, but there's definitely places to get like factory defect Transformer toys.
there's nothing wrong with them.
No, there's nothing wrong. It's people are pocketing them and selling them. Or every once in a while, you will get some that are from a test run, and they're different colorations.
Yeah, well, the ones that I've seen were like R&D, like they were like
Yeah.
well, the one and there was a guy that does nothing but like mostly Godzilla toys, and he had like, and it's funny because it's like the from the Godzilla animated series from the '99
Yeah,
movie.
that's like the sequel to the movie. Yeah.
Yes. And it had like the spot for like where the noisemaker would be, had the holes in it, but nothing in it. It
Yeah.
didn't make any noise and all that. It was literally the one that they build up and they say this is what we're going to use.
Yeah.
This is the specs and all of this. And uh, I'm just like, where the hell do these people find these things? Because like stuff like that would have to get out from the company. That's not like what they send to the this is what they would put on display at like a toy show, saying, "Hey, these are the upcoming toys we're
Yeah.
looking at."
I mean,
you know,
that's probably where it walked away from. But like for a long time, back in the late '90s, well, mid '90s, there was supposed to be a set of GI Joe figures that followed up one of the series, Space something or another. But anyway, they were aliens.
okay.
They never released them, but somehow some of the prototypes found their way out. So people knew about them, and occasionally one would pop up on eBay.
I know the problem is now I find something I'm like, I want to get that because that's like a lot of this stuff is just like one in a very small few
Yeah.
of things to get to have. Now, my problem would be is I probably wouldn't find anything worthwhile, like something I'd be interested in, like the Godzilla ones, like they were cool, but I wouldn't spend that kind of money on them.
Prototype to the unreleased Halloween 3 Season of the Witch figures.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm making that up. There aren't any. There have been some that have been released, I believe, but there's no unreleased
Oh, yeah,
ones.
at some point we need to watch. I suppose that there's new footage for the Godzilla minus one trailer, and it honestly, from the screenshots I've seen, looks phenomenal. Like I am excited to go see that. Like hell, I don't give a shit if it's all in Japanese with English subtitles,
I think it's going to be.
and if it is, I'm taking Grant with me because Grant loves Godzilla and he'll love it, and Owen, he'll go with me too.
Well, if you follow Fathom Events, which is, I've talked about going to watch like older movies like Enter the Dragon and stuff here on the channel. That's who puts them on. Is a group called Fathom Events. I believe it's next month. Godzilla 2000 is going to be out for 2 days.
Yes.
Well, this weekend, this coming weekend for us, probably going to be past this weekend by the time you folks hear this, so it's not going to do you much good. But here goes. Back to the Future is going to be on Saturday.
Well, just get your time machine, go back.
Yeah.
Anyways, go back to 1955 and warn the people about.
Well, the funny part is now the entirety of the Back to the Future franchise takes place in our past. All of it, even the future scenes, are in our past. So
I learned something that not that I put too much whatever into it, but I guess like I watched this video about a guy talking about Nostradamus and that all of his predictions were bogus. I mean, none of them were even close. So, like people just the amount of stretching people did to get any of this stuff to mean anything. Pretty much he was a charlatan.
well, I mean, it's a guy trying to predict the future. Like,
Because there was one where they were talking about the rise of. They're like, oh, they were talking about the rise of the German Hitler. I guess I could say Hitler. I guess hopefully if that doesn't get us.
we're too small of a channel for them to care, Jim. Go knock yourself out.
Well, no, but that supposedly that there was a prediction that about the rise of Hitler, but they said it was just one letter off. It was Hister. But they said then he went in and explained. Well, Hister means this. It's not what there is. It's not a name. It's a thing, or it's something else. It's something else entirely. But people took something that vaguely matched an event.
Yeah, that's how predictions work.
I know.
It's the same thing. Like whenever people like coming forward to the FBI or police, like trying to find a missing person claimed to be psychic. 90 some odd percent of the time, they'll say you're going to find them near a body of water. Well, of course you're going to, because where do people live? Near bodies of water, because we need water.
Yes.
So they'll always say that because, yeah, you're probably going to find them within a mile or so of a body of water. That's because that's just odds are that's going to happen. So it has nothing to do with being psychic. It's about playing the odds. And then you just go, some vague baloney after that. But,
Yeah, like saying someone's going to rise to power.
yeah,
Well,
I mean,
people do that all the time.
now for whatever it's worth, I'd put like zero stock in some rando on YouTube trying to say that Nostradamus was wrong. Put as much stock as that as the other people saying it was right. But that's just me. Because one time they got really bored, and HBO had this special narrated by Orson Welles, pre-Unicron, where he went through and basically was like, well, so he said this, and it kind of points to this, and he said this, kind of points to this, and he said these things, which haven't happened yet, which we're interpreting as these things. And there's like a couple things in there that I was like, as I was watching the show, this was something recorded. This had to have been the early 80s. And there were some things in there, that, at least the way they presented them, as I recall correctly, have since panned out. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't put much stock in people predicting the future.
Yeah, no. I'm not saying, though, with that being said, though, I still believe in, that there is something, because deja vu, it has happened to me.
That's a glitch in the Matrix, Jim.
Yes. There's been a couple of times, and when I've had it, it's been intense. Like, I'm like, this all is familiar. And it's like just random situations, too.
Well, I mean, I get that with people sometime, not so much deja vu, but I'm like, I know I've seen this person somewhere. I know it's not someone that I like knew in high school or anything at all like that, because like usually the age difference is too much. And I'm like, and I'm just sitting there and like, do they work somewhere that I've been before? Like, are they like someone that like worked at a McDonald's or something, and I saw them one time or a couple times? And it's never that like, oh, this was someone I talked to a lot or anything like that. It's like someone that like I've seen like once someplace else, and like something about it just stuck. And now I see them again somewhere, and like, it's one of those awkward, like, you don't go up and ask them like, hey, did you by any chance work at McDonald's in like 2013, give or take? Like, what are you going to say to that?
They're like, yes, and I remember your order.
Well, now I do have a story about being on the receiving end of that, by the way. Went to McDonald's in Jasper one time. It was me, Chris, and someone else. And I went up to take my order. We went inside, and the guy at the counter is like, "Hey, are you Bobby?" And he knew my last name too. And I was like, "Yeah, sure am." And it was someone that went to our school, but left in like the third or fourth grade. And like as soon as he said his name, like I remembered him, but I didn't, he didn't grow near at the same rate I did, so he's a lot shorter.
Yeah.
And but like I was like, "Oh yeah, hell, I remember you," and talked for a few minutes, and never seen him since. Like just saw him like the one time, just out of the blue, like someone from years before, and then that was it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so anyway, I think that's all we've got for channel news. Uh,
Well, let's get on to the
get on the actual topics.
meat and potatoes of the today's conversation.
All right, so there's going to be two large-ish topics and then some peripheral stuff. So the first one is Disney seems to be under attack on basically every front, and things are not looking good. So we'll start with the mild and work towards the wild here. Uh, First of all, the numbers for Ahsoka are not good. We're talking like less than 1 million people watched the finale in the first week. To the point of like, everyone's like, there's no possible way that they can make a movie to wrap this up. It will be the biggest box office embarrassment of all time. Because if less than 1 million people watch that, that's the audience you're looking at, essentially. You're not going to get tens of millions of people to randomly go to the theater.
No.
It's just not going to happen. So there might be a movie made, but it's going to be like a Disney Plus movie, which hopefully better than like Disney Home Channel movies. But we'll see. So that's not good. What's worse is that everyone is like, all right, well, Loki was really popular. That'll save us. Plus, it's, everyone's looking forward to it, which as near as I can tell they were. And I've read mostly positive things. We thought it was good. And its numbers weren't great either. So, and Disney's like trying to mess with the numbers and be like, oh, well, this many views using these metrics. And it's like, that sounds fishy. And I don't remember exactly how they did it, but it's not clear how many people actually watched it. So, you have that going on. The stock price is down. The gentleman that tried to launch like an internal coup a few months ago is back for round two because he does not like what Bob Iger has done in the last several months. Now the guy owns even more stock in the company, so he has an even greater chance of actually getting board seats, which will be the beginning of the end of the Iger dynasty. So he's making his move, and the upcoming share call doesn't sound good either. So you have that going on. Then you have, the sordid tales of the new Snow White movie. For those of you who don't know, look it up. But things aren't looking good for that one. Like the main actress seems to be doing her best to outcompete Carol Danvers. What's her name?
Oh, Brie Larson.
Brie Larson. She seems to have looked at what Brie Larson did, and then took some advice from like the people behind Ghostbusters 2016 and was like, "Give me a heavy dose of all that, and let's turn that dial to 11." And that's basically what she's been doing. So, if Brie Larson's any indication, this will not end well for her. So, you have that going on. And amid all this, apparently, do you know who Ben Shapiro is?
Oh yeah, because the Daily Wire. Yes, yeah. I know.
So the Daily Wire, which Ben Shapiro runs, we're not getting into Ben Shapiro and the politics of this. This is just a matter of who this is. There's a woman that works there, Brett Cooper. And apparently the Daily Wire is getting into the movie business and is going to make their own Snow White movie with Brett Cooper playing Snow White. Even though she looks a little bit more like the evil queen, but, whatever.
But the one thing I saw a lot of people were complaining, they're like, and I get it. I get people, are saying, well, the Daily Wire doesn't need to go making movies. But the one thing they were doing, they were slamming her. They're like, well, she's not even an actress, and they're like, well, no, that's what she did.
Yeah, she was an actress. Like she has a page on the Internet Movie Database because of what she used to do.
Yes.
Like she was a child actress. She's not that old right now. So, but yeah, so they're making their own Snow White. So Disney has competition, direct competition in the Snow White field. Now, to be realistic, the Daily Wire Snow White, if it gets theatrically released, is probably not going to do huge numbers or anything, just because they're an unknown quantity. Then again, maybe it will, because that Jim Caviezel movie just took off. So, what was the name of that one? He's the going to get like the abducted kids. Like Mel Gibson's one of the producers and
Oh,
everything.
the
It was a few months ago.
yeah, I know, I know. I'm just
But anyway, it may or may not come to us. But that one took off, so who knows? And so you have all this going on, and then
yes.
the guys from South Park are making a special that's going to be on Paramount Plus called the Panderverse, where all of the characters are going to be race and gender swapped to just absolutely ridicule this with reckless abandon. And apparently Disney has gone to the lengths of threatening legal action against this. And apparently, like, their lawyers met, and the lawyers for Paramount, from the sounds of things, basically had to, like, explain with graphs involving crayons to, like, explain the First Amendment to these people. That, like, there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Yeah, no.
And it ended up with Disney's lawyers being like, well, we're not going to do anything right now, but if this somehow negatively impacts us, it's like, well, it's going to, because that's what these guys do is satire, and you have set yourselves up for it in a massive way. So I think everyone basically smells blood in the water and is launching every attack they've got at Disney right now. So it's not looking good for the House of the Mouse. Oh, that's the other thing they're going to go after, at least in a special next year, is the fact that Mickey Mouse is about to enter the public domain, and they can't do anything about it, especially since Congress is gridlocked and can't move anything forward. So yeah, Disney is it's not, and somewhere in there they've got to come up with the money to buy the rest of Hulu.
Well, did you also happen to see the predictions for the
Oh
Marvels?
yeah, I forgot about that.
Uh,
That's looking to be terrible.
they
I,
said
I think the current prediction is maybe $60 million opening weekend.
they said worse than Quantumania.
Yeah.
Uh, which I don't know. I think some of that may just be the decline just of the MCU in general. I don't even know if it has to do with always the quality of the movies. Not saying that the qualities are good. I'm just saying it's.
Yeah.
I think it's just the less and less people that are caring about these characters.
Well, it'll be hard. Like the big problem is, let's say it crashes spectacularly. No matter what, Disney will not take the correct lesson from this because no other studio seems to.
Yeah.
So they're going to be like, oh, it's all those dirty misogynists who don't want to see a female lead or something. That'll be what they'll try to say, or it'll be uh, because the second and third characters are women of color, they'll blame it on racism, and it's like, well, but Black Panther did like $1 billion some odd, and I'm pretty sure Black Panther 2 did as well.
Well, Miss Marvel did had $1 billion as well.
So like, these other like these things, the prior box office leads me to believe that the average MCU fan is not one of those things. So it's that's going to fall on deaf ears, you know.
Yeah.
Um, because the real problem is that yes, Captain Marvel did do $1 billion. They could have put an hour and a half of someone making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in between Infinity War and Endgame, and it would have made $1 billion because they heavily implied that you needed to see that movie, even though you did not, to understand what was going to happen in Endgame. You didn't need to see it at all. And I've got the feeling that there's a lot of people that feel burned on that, who then also didn't care for the movie because it's an okay movie, but it's not on the top end of the MCU. And I don't fault Brie Larson for this. I've seen her in other movies. She can act. I think this is either writing or directing. I know there's no way she came on the set and was like, I want to just be a completely emotionless robot today. I'm sure that was a production decision and not her decision.
Yeah.
But that's the way she comes across in the movie. And I know this is one of those like double standards here for men and women, but people generally don't go to watch movies about women that are behaving that way. They just don't want to see it. That's just the way it is. It's like we don't. It's like we're all like, oh, people can look how they look, but realistically, if movies were filled full of people that were threes and fours, like we wouldn't watch most of them. You find people that are like eights and up, and magically, like in Last Action Hero, where every single woman they encounter is like a 10 because it's California. You know, no, it's because it's an action movie. Because that's what happens in action movies, and so that's just the way it is. And so again, I don't fault Brie Larson at all. Now she said some stupid things outside the movie, but I don't fault her for the movie at all because again, seen her, she can act. You know, in these previews for this one, she looks like she's having more fun. So there's that. And the director has said that it's a fun movie. Whereas the director also said that Kevin Feige basically controlled the whole thing, and it may end up being terrible. And she's only ever directed one of the movies, so
Yeah, there was other things she said too that were like,
yeah, there's a lot that leads. There's a lot where I could see this movie being just a total train wreck. But again, I have this irrational hope that it's not. And it's not because I like Captain Marvel as a character or Brie Larson or anything. Like I did like Monica Rambeau from WandaVision.
Yeah.
So I'm and I still haven't watched Miss Marvel yet, but everyone that has watched it said it's a good show. And that girl's a young actress who's not out here saying all kinds of just trashy things, trashing half the fan base. So I want it to work for her. And of course, like Samuel L. Jackson, he's great. Although the Nick Fury show was not Nick Fury. What was it? Secret Invasion was a little wonky, but I don't blame that on Samuel L. Jackson. So I hope it's good. I plan on going to watch it in the theater.
Yeah,
mainly because I think what the hell is the last movie I went to go watch? It was Enter the Dragon, 50-year-old movie.
Honestly, I couldn't tell you. I was trying to think. No, hold on. The last one I watched, I took the boys. Now I'm trying to remember what the hell it was now.
Super Mario?
No, it was Indiana Jones.
Oh, Indiana Jones. There you go.
Yes.
So yeah, things are not looking good for the House of the Mouse. And honestly, all of this is the fault of Bob Iger. Like top to bottom. This is all his fault.
They need to bring back Michael Eisner.
Well, him, or actually give Bob Chapek a chance, because I've been watching several videos talking about that. Like, while he was supposed to be the guy running the company, Bob Iger still had an office and was like actively undermining everything Chapek was doing because Chapek was done with all this nonsense. It was like, we need to just go back to making entertaining movies. Forget the rest of this baloney. And Iger was like, oh, I don't think so. And so even though Chapek was like the guy he chose, he just undermined him at every corner. So, yeah, I don't know what you can do in that situation. And of course, as the chairman of the board, he re-upped his own contract. So that, like, even if they do fire him, like, he'll still keep an office and everything, just like he did the last time. So I'm really, really hoping that the other guy's hostile takeover works and he, like, legitimately cans Bob Iger, like, across the board and, sends him to go live on some island somewhere. Preferably, like, Treasure Island or something. But yeah. So it's not good for Disney. Not at all. Oh yeah, that was one of the things when they were like talking to the South Park guys. One of the things they mentioned was like if the Marvels underperforms, and I'm like, well, hey, you may as well go ahead and start the lawsuit now because even if they don't release that episode, it's going to happen.
I'm just waiting for the Marvels to go straight to Disney Plus.
Yeah, well, that was the movie I talked about last time, Totally Killer.
Yep.
was watching someone else's review of that, Chris Gore, and I guess I didn't pay enough attention at the very beginning. It's not an Amazon Prime original movie; it's a Blumhouse movie, the horror movie company,
Oh yes.
and which means that they at least had the option to release it in theaters. I think, and I think they should have, because it can't have a huge budget, and it would have definitely made money. It's an entertaining movie.
Yeah, I think I could. I'll just double check. I want to believe that the new Five Nights at Freddy's is also Blumhouse.
I think it is.
I'm gonna just double check.
I generally assume every horror movie now is, but hell, I think the new Halloween movies are Blumhouse movies.
I like that. Yeah, well, at least it says there it's a. I don't know. It may or may not be. If it isn't,
I think it is.
Let's see if it is. I got the Wikipedia on that. Yeah, Bloomhouse. I know I've got at least two kids that I'll be taking that to, and Grant's not one of them. So I don't think it's going to be that appropriate. I mean, it doesn't look like it's going to be too bad, but I mean, it is about animatronics that kill people and try to stuff them into suits. So maybe if it's anything like games.
At least one scene in one of the trailers leads me to believe that's going to happen to at least one guy. So,
Did you see the hand come out or
no, like the suit's like backing up to him, like opens up. There's like spinning saw blades getting ready to like go into his head, go into his face. So.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. I mean, as simple of a game that Five Nights at Freddy's is, it's honestly it's got a lot of lore behind it. I mean, there's an entire channel that's pretty much built half their fan base on just talking about game, the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's, and that would be game theory.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
reminds me of the video I watched part of one night is a 4 hour long video explaining the timeline of the Call of Duty zombies, like all the various entries, how they all fit into one overarching story arc.
Well, I can tell you for pretty much a matter of fact, there's at least 100 some of them plus probably 100 plus videos that he's done on just the lore. Because there's the movies, the books, or the games, the books, and now the movie. So,
yeah, it seems like there wouldn't be that much there, but
well, there's a whole thing about not just the animatronics, why they're killing people, it's because they've got the souls of children in them. Because
that's in the trailer for the movie.
Yeah, and that's because the guy that ran Freddy Fazbear was delusional and went around murdering kids, and then hiding their bodies into animatronic suits, and then they became possessed because of the type of metal they used. It was able to absorb the souls of the children.
Cores of pure selenium.
I don't remember what it was. It had some name to it, but I'm not good at like the games and stuff because again, my anxiety, it's all jump scares. I mean, overall, the lore itself is not anything scary to be. I mean, besides if it was happening to you, I'm sure if a giant animatronic's coming after you to kill you, would be a little terrifying.
Yeah, probably.
I went to Chuck E. Cheese and freaking the animatronic gets up and walks over to.
Well, that reminds me, like, you can buy Chuck E. Cheese pizzas now in the frozen section. But it's been so long, I don't remember if the pizzas were actually any good or not. And I don't know if the current ones are actually even like remotely like what you'd get in the restaurant.
No, like the Chuck E. Cheese pizzas were always they're just mediocre. Yeah. I mean, it was just like, the pizza was just like, yeah, it's all right. You were there to play the games and do all that stuff.
And watch the creepy animatronic band.
Speaking of that, I mean, they knew those things were creepy because that's why I was thinking, because one of my movies I talked about a while back was a Goofy movie, and that's where they go to the possum park, which had all the possum animatronics. And
yeah. Terrifying. So, a little bit more on the Disney front. Their big plan to get new subscribers, like we talked about last time, is to raise the price of Disney Plus.
Yeah, so the very first thing I did was I dropped my plan down back to the regular payment, and honestly, it sucks because I know that there's a few shows. There's the Star Wars stuff. I want to keep it for that, but I've gotten rid of most of my streaming services because I realized I hadn't been watching any of them.
Yeah.
So
well, they have a similar plan for the theme parks. Due to low attendance, they're going to raise the price because that'll get more people in, is to charge more. I'm becoming more and more convinced that someone at Disney is making these decisions that like doesn't understand the first thing about economics or money or people
What are you talking
or
about?
basically
If you
anything.
need more money, you make more money by charging more
Well, yeah.
versus lowering the price, enticing people back into your parks.
Well, we'll actually have something of a control group to prove this now if we could actually get the numbers. Because you've seen the ads for Mint Mobile, Ryan Reynolds' phone company,
Yeah.
where he's like, everyone else is raising prices, we're going to lower prices, and they have. So I guess we'll see. But that's to me that's what you would do. Uh, so you have that. They're apparently considering repurposing and reopening the Galaxy Star Cruiser thing.
Well, you built it. I mean,
Don't do like the other theme parks you built. You just abandoned to the Florida swamp.
well, you mean like Discovery Island?
Yeah.
The thing is that I don't know how they ever expected that thing to succeed. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are people that can spend 4 or 5 grand on a singular item, but I'm telling you, that's probably 75% of the country that's not going to be able to drop that kind of cash.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's well,
And if not, or if they can,
they're not going to on that.
well, that would be the only thing they get to do all year.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, kids, you're not going to get Christmases or birthdays, so
Hope
luckily they happen on the same days.
hope you like Star Wars. We're Star Trek fans, Dad. Not now. You're not, kids. I don't hear that Vulcan logic from you.
You know, supposedly they were supposed to build I guess a like Starship Enterprise in Las Vegas.
Well, I've been to the Las Vegas Hilton where they have all the Star Trek stuff.
I bet that'd be good.
It is. It's kind of cool. They've got a motion machine ride kind of deal where you get in and like you're on board a shuttle and like the Enterprise is being attacked by the Borg or something, and the whole deal is like they're in the present. Like someone on board the shuttle is like a distant relative to some important person on the Enterprise, and so they've got to stop the Borg from killing them, and all that general nastiness. So you go through all that. Then once you're out of that, they have a replica of Quark's bar that is a bar because it's
Yeah.
Las Vegas.
Well, of course.
And
Can you play the?
I don't know if you can play the Dabo machines,
I,
but
I, you know,
and there I don't remember if there were Dabo girls there or not, but it was Las Vegas, so maybe. Uh, but yeah, then they got like artwork and stuff you can buy, and this like a big timeline of like kind of wraps around like a thing that's about waist height that has like the timeline leading up to like the next generation Deep Space Nine, and it's pretty cool. The only problem is Las Vegas Hilton is nowhere near anything else in Las Vegas. It's not on the strip and it's not downtown. It's just like kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and the only thing by it is the convention center, which is also why all those every year after Gen Con, you get those people, oh, it needs to move out of Indianapolis for whatever reason this year. And there's like a few cities everyone points to. One of them's always Las Vegas, and everyone keeps trying to tell them, no, because the convention center is not near a damn thing, which is true, because I've been to a convention there, and like it's hotter than hell because it'll be during the summer whenever it's like 130 degrees in the shade, and that's almost not hyperbole. One year we always drive out there, and one year whenever we used to go that way for our vacations, we came in and it was like 5 in the afternoon, and it was 115 degrees. Like
yeah.
that is no joke. That is what the temperature is out there. Now, it is a dry heat.
Which I can take. I get why people move to like Phoenix and stuff like that because I like the dry heat.
Yeah, see, like because we live here in southern Indiana, which is basically like a swamp.
Yes, if you must enjoy the swamp ass.
And so here, if you sweat, it just builds up on your skin and everything, and it's just nasty. You don't have that problem in Las Vegas. Any ounce of moisture is it's just gone. And then they've got like things on the strip where like there's just those spray jets, the mist, like at theme parks. They've got those set up just out on the sidewalk because again, it's hotter than holy hell out there. And if you do it right, you can actually move between most of the hotels without actually going outside. So, there's ways to mitigate it. Now, kind of an upside, downside, depending on how you want to look at it. Uh, Typically in the desert, it gets cold at night because sand does not retain heat. Well, the city, however, is made of steel and concrete, which do retain heat. So while it cools off, it doesn't actually get cold. You
Yeah.
go right outside the city, though, it gets cold. But yeah, a little divergence about Las Vegas there. So anyway, back to Disney. I think that's most of the bad news for Disney at the moment.
Now, is there
As
any
as
good
if
news?
no,
No. No.
there's really not.
And that's the thing is that they should be able to print freaking money with the IPs that they have.
Yeah, with like they have single handedly destroyed Star Wars, and then like they brought it like they had it with the Mandalorian. Interest was rekindled. Mandalorian season 2, things were looking good, and then Obi-Wan happened, and a lot of people were like, "Yeah, no, sorry." The show's called Obi-Wan. He's only in like a third of it, so it should have been called Reva, and we don't like her because she just screams throughout most of the goddamn show. And it's like, it's nothing against the actress or anything, but number one, it's annoying as all hell. But number two, given the context, it makes no sense because her character is incredibly reckless, and the Empire is an organization where that doesn't get you very far because your superiors will just kill you.
Yeah.
So, like, her being where she was just does not logically fit with the rest
Yeah,
of
no,
the
no,
series.
because when Vader was training the Inquisitors, one of the first lessons he's taught him is, one, I can destroy all of you if you act up, and pretty much maimed every single one of them. And he's like, well, that's going to drive them to be, really towards the dark side.
Yeah.
Got it. Because the one, I can't remember which number sister it was, but the really big hulking one, she's missing her hand because of Vader.
But yeah, so, like, you had that problem. Now, I mean, on the whole, I thought the Obi-Wan series was entertaining. I thought it was fine. I found Reva annoying, but that's basically it.
I don't know. I did kind of like the Obi-Wan Leia dynamic, but it makes no sense in the context of A New Hope
Right. That is part of the problem is like,
because she was old enough to remember him.
yeah, I think that entire thing was built in there just because too many people pointed out, why would Han and Leia name their son Ben? Neither of them had any connection to Obi-Wan. There was just some guy that was on Han's ship for like a couple of hours before he got killed. Leia didn't know him. Well, now she did.
Yeah, and it would have been a little bit different if,
To really cover for the fact that they just stole his name from the EU because Luke's son was named Ben because Luke had a connection to Ben, so it made sense. But Luke
though,
got to be a hermit drinking like weird alien green milk, so
I guess there's a way I can let it slide. And the reason why is because she said she was asking for help, and she said, you served with my father during the Clone Wars. And it's kind of like, hey, I want you to repay it's time to repay that, some favor or whatever.
I guess. But like if some rando guy came up to me and was like, "Hey, I was with your grandpa whenever the battleship got sank there at the Aleutian Islands. My grandpa was on a ship that got sank at the Aleutian Islands. I didn't make that part up. And like, I helped him not die or something. You know, I'm gonna be like, well, thanks, but I'm not gonna name my kid after him. Like, I don't know who the hell this guy is.
True.
Like, you know, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Even if I know for a fact he did, he's just some guy that I just met off the street that like he had far more significance to my grandpa than he did to me. You know, so I don't know. I mean, I see what you're saying,
Yeah.
but it's just like at the end of the day, it's because Luke had a kid named Ben, but they decided Luke wasn't going to have a kid. They had Jason and Jaina sitting there, but they don't want to name him Jason because then it's it's obvious he's on the dark side because Jason was. So let's not use those names. Let's use the one that we're just going to steal from Luke because we're not going to let him have a kid
Yeah, they could have had.
because Mara Jade doesn't exist in our reality because we're terrible writers. So we could have the rest of this just turn into shitting on the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, well, I think we've got other topics to go on. One that may be even more.
All right. So anyway, like that scene in Clue where it's like to make a long story short, and everyone's like, "Yeah, too late." That's basically where we are here. Long story short, shit's not looking good for Disney at all. So let's see. On to books. The only thing I've got there is it would appear from New York Comic Con that the current era of the X-Men is coming to a close, like 3 years later than it probably should have. I'll know more about that once I read my year and a half backlog of X-Men comics and get caught up to the present so I can see the future. That'll all make sense later, probably, maybe, or in the past, I don't know. That's what it's like reading the X-Men comics. You don't know where you are or when, but yeah. So that's going to be happening from the sounds of things, because it sounds like all the rats are abandoning the ship. The people that write it that are terrible at comic book writing, who should have left a long time ago, and the editor who can't edit a goddamn thing apparently is also leaving, thankfully. So yeah, that's what's going to be happening. Jonathan Hickman might be moving to Spider-Man from the sounds of things, which will be interesting because the stuff he writes, I just don't see that with Spider-Man, but we'll see. I mean, next thing we know, there's going to be some like space god and data pages and Spider-Man fighting for the fate of the universe in the past, present, and future against Celestials or something. I don't know. Hickman's a big picture kind of guy. Spider-Man's not really a big picture kind of character. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't know if that's regular Spider-Man or Ultimate Spider-Man because they're relaunching the Ultimates line. So we'll have to see on that. That's
Oh boy.
it. That's it for books.
Oh boy, give me some of that Ultimate Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver.
You know, you really need to move on from that. Like, I've got the feeling that was only a brief thing in there, and like they moved on pretty quickly.
I know.
However, one of the greatest comic panels ever is from the Ultimates. It's where Mr. Sinister is at the top of a flight of stairs with Xavier and just shoves him down the stairs as Lord just saying stairs and just shoves him down him. And I was like, oh yes, Xavier's mortal nemesis, stairs.
Puts him in the wheelchair.
No, he like threw him out of the wheelchair.
Oh,
He was already crippled. Now he just can't come back up the steps because he's crippled. But it's just like, wow, Mr. Sinister's kind of a jerk. I mean, I wouldn't expect that from a guy named Mr. Sinister or anything, but like, that's just like petty evil. Like, for those of you who didn't ever see the Tick cartoon from the 90s, there's a guy named the Terror, who, as the Tick explains, was the greatest evil of the 20th century, and part of the 19th, I think, because he's mainly known for punching out Teddy Roosevelt on the White House lawn. And then in a later story, Tick is talking about him working with Joseph Stalin and their army of atomic-powered robot zombie men. And Arthur interrupts, is like, what the heck? Tick, what? No, that's not how science works. He's like, it was a wilder time, chum, before science was tamed by molecules and theories. More things were possible. And it's like, what the hell are you talking about, Tick? You clearly don't understand none of this. But anyway, the Terror is explaining to this young kid, like, you want to know what real evil is, kid? It's just walking up to a guy and slapping him in the face for no reason and just walking away. That's evil. And the kid's just like, I used to look up to you. So yeah. To give you an idea how old this guy is, the atomic-powered robot zombie men story is being told to people in an old folks' home. That's where the Terror's son or grandson is as a resident. So, like, the Terror is ancient. Yeah. So anyway, I think that's all I got for the book front. So on to gaming, I guess.
all
We're
right,
going to gaming or streaming?
I don't got anything on streaming.
Streaming will be very brief. I blitzed through Castlevania seasons 3 and 4 because I didn't watch them when they came out for some reason. They were good. They were actually really good. 3's kind of slow. It's just kind of positioning things for season 4, but season 4 is good. Like a lot of like serious, in-depth like character stuff. A lot of the characters realizing like why do we actually want the things we want them respectively? You know, should we actually want them? What would we do if we got them? Like, some spoilers. Dracula gets killed in the end of season 2 of that. So in towards the end of his reign in season 2, Carmilla is already like actively working to try to overthrow him. But then he gets killed, and so do a bunch of the other vampires. But she escapes with most of her army and one of the Forge Masters who can make the night creatures. Just also, side note, I've only played part of one Castlevania game. I have no idea how accurate or inaccurate this game is to the lore. The movie is to the show is to the lore. I'm given to understand it's not overly accurate. So here goes.
Yeah, 'cause like I say, killing Dracula doesn't do a whole lot. You can just gather his bones and put them back together and
Well,
kill him again.
we'll get to that here in a second. So Carmilla gets back to her castle like 800 miles away from Wallachia. This actually, I don't know, do the Castlevania games actually take place in the real world or like someplace else?
Um, I don't, I don't know if it's Transylvania or what. I honestly, I don't know if I caught that lore.
Well, because these take place in the real world in a very specific year and everything. So, because Wallachia is, if I recall correctly, in Transylvania. So, because that, and Vlad is Vlad Tepesh, so he's that Vlad Dracula. Uh, anyway, so he gets killed. She has to march her army like 800 miles back to her castle. By the time she gets there, like the horses are all dead because they've been attacked by humans repeatedly, and it's literally just her and the army. Once she like gets settled back in and gets her wits together, her and her other three vampire gals who run the whole show there are like, she's like, "Hey guys, so I just marched 800 miles through absolute chaos. Like, let's conquer it. Like, there's nothing holding anything together between here and Wallachia. Why don't we conquer it, enclose it, and then we have enough livestock, being the people that are there, to last us forever." And they're like, "Well, it would be stretching things kind of thin." And eventually, the other three all come around to how they can make it happen. But they have some reservations. And once the one who's like the general and the one who's like the logistics person actually go out to survey things to try to make sure they really understand what's going on because their intel's spotty at best, they get attacked at one point in the middle of the day because they're just in like tents and fields, you know. Well, the people attacking them know they're vampires, so it's like, just cut the tents open, let the sun do the job, you know. And they're like, "Oh shit, that will actually work. We better fight these guys back." Well, she, the main one, has armor, so she can go out in the sun, and so she goes out there and just starts mowing through them because she's, even if she were just like a normal vampire, she'd be stronger and faster. But she's like a hulking brute, like taller than I am, and just like mows through them. And then she comes back, and the other vampire chick, uh, who they're lovers, she's like, "Hey, so you know how you were telling me that you don't think there's any way we could actually tame this region? Like, I've come around to your way of thinking. So, like, that wasn't an army; those were just people. They will never accept us as rulers, especially once we start eating them." He's like, "What I just did? I'll be doing that for the rest of eternity if we try this." And she's like, "I don't want to do that." Like, nope, I didn't become immortal just to waste my time doing stupid shit like this. So the two of them have to have like a real kind of heart to heart of like, well, we're immortal. Like, are we going to lock ourselves into this stupidity forever? And they're like, ain't happening. So they just like gather the army. We're going back to the castle to tell Carmilla this is not happening. And they get there right as someone else is attacking the castle, and they kill Carmilla. And they're like, well, this is what we tried to avoid. This is what we get for overreaching. We had a good thing, and then we had to go and do more. And so the one of the quartet that's left in the castle is with the other forge master, and he's explaining where things went wrong with Carmilla. And he's basically like, look, she wanted more than she could ever hope to contain. Because towards the end, she was like, I want to conquer the entire world. And she's like, so many of the high ranking vampires got killed with Dracula, like, we can take all their territories. And they're just like, whoa, 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 like, one step at a time here. And so he's like, no, she just, it's just endless hunger. And so the other one's like, oh, so like a vampire, you mean? And she's like, yeah. And that's when the other woman's like, so like me, because he kind of likes her. And she's just like, someone else had conquered the castle, and he was with the other guy, so he wouldn't kill her. And she's like, well, I'm not going to live my whole life here being a prisoner, and you've made me realize what I am by my very nature, which is ultimately going to get me killed just like Carmilla at some point. So I'm going to go check out this sunrise you talk about so much. And she goes out and she sees the sunrise, and she's just like, is that it? Like, you melodramatic bastard. And they're just like, and he's just like, well, shit. Now she's gone. Now what the hell am I going to do? And yeah, so the rest of the plot involves trying to resurrect Dracula.
Does it involve gathering his bones and
No, no,
putting it
no,
into an orb and throwing
nope,
his stake at it?
no. They have to get his soul out of hell. And this guy who's an alchemist has been told he's got a girlfriend who's stuck in like the infinite corridor, which is like a gateway between all times and places and everything. He can't control it. He can get into it, but he can't control it to get to where he needs to go. It just kind of randomly. And he encounters someone who's another alchemist who's like, there's a way to do it. You just need to complete like the ultimate work of alchemy and create, I think it was a rebus is what it was called, which is to bind two souls together into a hermaphroditic body. Shit gets really weird at the end of this show.
It sounds like it.
And so they're like, so you need to get Dracula and his bride that got killed way back in the beginning that sparked all this crap and fuse them together. And so he's like, oh, sure thing. And there's like one vampire that's pushing him to do all this stuff. And voiced by Malcolm McDowell. Yeah, the voice acting goes up a notch in seasons 3 and 4. Malcolm McDowell shows up. Not Bill Nye, Bill Nighy. Uh, Davy Jones from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. And also Jason Isaacs. He's in season 3 as this town mayor kind of guy. Lucius Malfoy, for those of you who don't know that name off the top of your head. So, Malcolm McDowell's character, like once the guy has like the portal locked and has found their two souls and is getting ready to bring them into the real world, he's just like, oh, you humans are so easy to manipulate. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, I've been manipulating you ever since we met. He's like, we never met until just now. He goes, oh, yes, we have. And he turns into the alchemist and he set all this in motion. He's like, but even this isn't my real form. And then he turns into a skeletal figure because he's literally death. And he's pissed off that someone killed Dracula because Dracula is going to kill everybody. He was denied his ultimate prize of everyone dying. So he wants Dracula back. And the guy's like, but, well, wait, you heard what I said. Like, he's going to be like a alchemical hermaphrodite with his wife. And he's like, I don't care. He'll just be crazy and more pissed off. He'll kill people even more now. And the guy's like, Jesus, we can't do this. So like their souls come out and get to the body, and like Dracula's fighting it because he has a strong will, so he's not going to allow himself to be transformed like that. And something all goes all wrong, and the alchemist ends up dying, and that all goes sideways. And so then Death's just really pissed off, and like Trevor Belmont's like, well, I guess I'm going to go back in there and fight him because reasons. And they're like, wait, you're going to fight like a personification of Death? And you're like, yeah, I think I could take him.
I mean, you do fight Death in the video games.
And so, yeah, it comes down to this like massive climactic fight because Death grows like this gigantic size and
as he does,
takes him on.
I know. I mean, he does in the games.
Yeah, so he had found something on one of the guards earlier, a couple relics. They'd just been like plundering this treasury nearby, and like he had noticed, he didn't say what it did. He's like, I can't believe someone's just walking around with this thing, and he's like looking at it, he's like, it goes with this thing, and he's like, surely this can't be what I think it is. And at the very end, he explains what it is, but like he takes it and he does something to distract Death, and then he like jams the gemstone into the dagger, and as near as I can tell, it like creates a black hole or something. He just jams it right into the skull there and takes out Death and dies. So,
he dies too?
Yeah, it leads you to believe that for a good 10 minutes until finally like his horse comes riding up to the castle there and he's on the back of it almost dead. And yeah, and Alucard's there at the castle. This is Dracula's castle. And yeah, and his wife starts with an S. Sylphie, Stephanie, something. But then the final shot is that Dracula and his bride are also still alive. Like they didn't go back to hell. Their souls like apparently built bodies and now they're just walking around. And so they're sitting there and she's like, so why are we still alive? What happened? He's like, I don't know. She's like, well, don't you have a theory? He goes, no, not really. She's like, you're a man. Men always have theories. What do you got? I was like, well, she's not wrong on that, but
it's the Roman Empire.
yeah. So So the two of them were just like, well, I guess let's just go and like see the world now. So the show actually kind of had a happy ending for everyone but Carmilla, uh, but she had it coming. So but everyone else seems to kind of got kind of what they wanted or maybe needed. Yeah, it got real philosophical on a lot of things there towards the end. But I did all this because now Castlevania Nocturne is on. I'm about 3 episodes into it. It's so far. Yeah,
But yeah.
that's.
So you got Trevor Belmont. Do you ever get to Simon Belmont?
I think Simon's Trevor's son, isn't he?
I gotta, I gotta remember how it goes because you
Because
have.
I think it's going to skip over Simon because the games focus on Simon. I think is the idea.
Well, that I don't know because one of them takes place before the other one. I can't remember if it's the first one, if it goes like in order, or if it's that the third one actually is the beginning of. I don't know because you have the first game is just Castlevania. They have Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, and Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. And I think Dracula's Curse may actually take place in the beginning of the timeline. But Simon's Quest was such a departure from the rest of the games. That's why they never went back to it. Because one, people got annoyed by the day-night transitions, where you'd be playing for a little bit and it would stop, have an unskippable text crawl that would say, "What a horrible night to have a curse." And then when it turned night, all the creatures became more powerful. And then when the sunlight would, when daytime would come, it would say like the sunlight has vanquished the blah blah blah, and the things would get weak again. And
Yeah.
then you had to collect hearts for not health but for money.
Well, I will make one other comment about the show. For those of you who have not seen it, it is graphically violent. Like it's anime esque in its appearance, but it is just gruesome to the hilt. Lots and lots of cussing. Definitely some sexual content, depending on the episode and the season. So yeah, like it is not for kids at all. Like you'll figure that out real quick in the first episode, but like just in case, just throwing that out there. So yeah, that's about it for streaming this week. So gaming, much like Disney, Hasbro has decided to make a series of unfortunate decisions that is probably going to come back to haunt them. Let's see. First, the one that's beyond their control, I assume. Troll and Toad, who, for those of you that don't know, is a very large reseller of trading card games, miniatures, I assume board games. They've usually got a booth at Gen Con every year, usually a decent sized booth. And I think they're actually located in Kentucky, their main headquarters. And they sell all kinds of these games that we talk about on here all the time. Well, as of January 1st next year, they will no longer be selling Magic the Gathering. Which, for those of you that can't appreciate what that means, that's huge. That would be like something else I'm going to mention here in a minute. But let's say that would be like Walmart saying, we're not going to sell Lego sets anymore, but we're going to keep the rest of the toy department. That's just insane. Like Magic the Gathering was just a license to print money for like 20 years. And apparently it's not anymore. And that's largely due to the efforts of Hasbro. So, from like reprinting sets, printing like remastered versions of sets, going for weird cash grabs, it's just all over the place. But yeah. Let's see. I also saw that apparently Amazon put up for sale randomly some Magic set that's not supposed to come out for months and like gets up for sale. I think it's still listed as for sale. And I'm assuming is actually shipping, not like a pre-order. So for them to just be like, screw the street date, that's pretty big. Let's see. They're also severing ties with the organization that trains the judges for Magic the Gathering tournaments. Don't know why, but they're going to. And then for Dungeons and Dragons, right now, the main distributor for Dungeons and Dragons books, like the Dungeon Master's Guide and Monster Manual, those kind of books, is Penguin Random House. And for For those of you that don't know how this whole thing works, uh, Hasbro prints the books. They're not the one that sends them to Walmart, to your game store, whatever. Their actual customer is like Penguin Random House. They sell the books to Penguin Random House. Penguin Random House, because of the volume they order, they get a discount. They then turn around and they sell the books to Walmart, Target, Barnes and Noble, possibly your local game store. Your local game store might get them through Alliance or Diamond, but they might also get them through Penguin Random House. So then they turn around, they sell them to those places, and then those places turn around and sell them for $50 or $60. Now in here, Penguin Random House, they get a little bit of money. They don't get a lot. They work on volume. Hasbro gets whatever percentage they get, uh, and they've assumed all the risk in printing the books. But they print however many Penguin Random House is going to order. But if Penguin Random House doesn't sell them, they pulp them, which I do mean that literally. They shred the paper and turn it to pulp and use it to make other books. Yeah.
Why?
Well, they're just sitting there. They don't have, they've got warehouses, but if something's not selling now as a book, its value is only going to go down from then. Because they're not going to be like, oh, let's wait 10 years and we'll sell them on eBay one by one for ridiculous prices. They're not going to do that. So they just destroy them, because there's no point keeping them around from their perspective. So it would appear that Hasbro, as of January 1st next year, is going to stop using Penguin Random House and either do it themselves, which is the way it's looking, or like open up the other distributors to more orders. But I don't think that's going to work. So I believe it's going to be them doing it themselves, which that'll take on cost, because right now what they're doing is they just ship the pallets straight to Penguin Random House, then Penguin Random House does the rest of the shipping. So instead, they'll have to do the shipping, which I don't know if they have the infrastructure to do that. So they're going to do that. And so what that means is like the say 15% that Penguin Random House was getting, now Hasbro is going to get that. But that's going to be offset by the fact that their printing costs have increased due to the tariffs with China, because they have them printed in China and shipped here instead of just printed here. And a few other things. So they're really only going to get like maybe a 9-10% increase in their profits. And it's also an odd time to do it because 5th edition, as we understand it, is winding down. We're looking at like whatever iteration all the testing is going to do for the next edition, which they're not going to call a new edition. They're still just going to call it D&D, but realistically it's going to be 6th edition or 5.5. And 5 is winding down. So I have no idea why they're making this move now when they're going to hit a slump in sales because of winding the edition down. So again, it's that whole let's increase customers by raising prices kind of philosophy, just in a weird other way. So all these things are going on for Wizards of the Coast, which is owned by Hasbro. Meanwhile, Hasbro is seeing several of their figure lines just like sit on store shelves until they wind up at Ollie's or Ross or some other discount store.
Yeah.
And people have caught on online. They're just like, screw it. Like, why would I pay full price when I know it's going to wind up at Ollie's? Because like you can go like the Ollie's around here, you can go into them and get 3 or 4 different waves of Marvel Legends figures. You can probably get the whole wave for half price. And if you find them at Ross, it's even less. Ross are like $6 each instead of 10. And then some G.I. Joe classified figures have wound up there for $5. $20 figures for $5. It's insane. So that's what has led their PR guy to tell folks one of the upcoming Marvel Legends waves isn't going to retail. It's only going to be online sales. So you have to either buy it through them or through like Entertainment Earth or Big Bad Toy Store or one of the others like that. And I think he even said something about, so don't think you're going to be able to just wait till it goes to Ollie's or something like that. And everyone's like, well, we don't have to. Those other stores run sales too. If we just wait and don't buy them from them, they'll reduce the price.
Of course.
So, because that's the way capitalism works. And because they also don't have infinite warehouses. So, But yeah, so not a good day for Hasbro either. Their stock price is half what it was like 2 years ago, and yeah, and now there's probably other reasons for that too, but it it's not looking good, and that's tied to the Disney problem because two of those three action figure lines are Star Wars and
Marvel.
Marvel. Transformers doesn't seem to be anywhere nearly as affected. Oddly enough, Hasbro makes them too, but they own those, and they own GI Joe. But yeah, Marvel and Star Wars, and the Marvel one I don't understand because most of the figures are decent. They're not like aside from the Eternals wave because no one wanted that. You can find that entire wave at like any ollies you walk into. But other than that, like they've been making new figures that like they haven't made before, like real deep cuts into the comic history. They do still have the same problem that every action figure line has, that they still look at like research data as if they were selling to kids, and they're not. Adults don't want an Iron Man or a Wolverine in every goddamn wave, but they insist on putting them in there, and that's what just sits there on the store shelves because no one needs them.
Of course.
Like a few people want all the Iron Man because they make like the Hall of Armor scene, but like you don't need a Wolverine in every set. Now, thankfully, some of these come with Build-A-Figure pieces, and thankfully, from most of the more recent waves, they do not put them in with the Iron Man and the Wolverine figures. So you don't have to buy them if you want the Build-A-Figure, thankfully.
Yeah. No. No kidding.
But yeah, no, it's not a good deal, and kind of all tied into all this. If you go and look, there are no dedicated Ahsoka toys. There's not none. There's a handful, but it's definitely not like with any other stuff. And apparently, the word on the street is this because Hasbro told them we don't want them. We're not going to make them. You have to prove to us this show is actually going to work because we've been burned a couple times now. So the only ones you're going to see are like for the Black series. That's the Black series. Those aren't Ahsoka the show toys. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
the difference in branding. They'll still make the figures, but they won't be like in Ahsoka packaging. They'll be in the Black series or like I don't remember what they call it, but it's the classic, the 3 3/4 inch scale. They
Yeah.
make those too, and that now that'll say like Ahsoka and like the kind of branding there, but
Yeah.
it won't be specifically an Ahsoka figure. It's just part of a larger line. That's
Yeah.
going from
Yeah. It's
them.
what they did like with the Jedi Fallen Order and
Yeah,
different things like that,
yeah,
where they had the label on it, but it could be still part of any other series.
right. And Lego's like the only thing that did, and they only made like 2 sets so far. I'm still holding out hope for those like snail people. I hope, or maybe a Black series version. I'll buy one of those too. Look, folks, I know I bitch about consumerism, but like they were cute. Damn it, I want one, and I'm not gonna apologize for that. I don't normally go in for that. Like I thought the Porgs were cute, but I never felt the urge to own one. Like Ewoks, I don't find them cute at all. And I don't know what else do we have from Star Wars. It's a few droids here and there, the little ones, or that little guy that tried to like extract all the stuff from 3PO and was Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
You know, kind of cute. I could see him selling some toys. Not to me. I don't want one, but the other things, I don't know. Something about them, I just want one, and not like a plushie or anything. That reminds me, I should bring my BattleTech plushie on here sometime to show people because they do make those. But yeah, so that's most of the gaming news. But there's another little tidbit I came across in another video. Apparently, next year at some point, Walmart's going to stop selling physical video games.
What?
Yeah, the discs.
Why? I mean, don't get me wrong. I get why, because a lot of games are going to
Well,
digital downloads.
because it probably has something to do with the people that are talking about this. They pulled up the sales, and like from last year, something like 80% of sales were digital sales.
Yeah, I can see
Like
that.
it was insane. Even those people who knew it was high didn't realize it was that high. So yeah, yes, that's a thing. So if you want your physical games, like start buying them now before you got to deal with GameStop before they tank. Also, one little tidbit. Jim, do you happen to know how many Wii U's Nintendo of America sold in North America last year?
Last year?
Last year.
When Nintendo Wii U's?
Yes, there are still new ones in boxes sitting on store
I
shelves.
have no idea.
Take a guess.
Well, I think like the overall total units sold was only like 10 million.
Just take a guess. I'm going to go ahead and tell you whatever you guess is going to be too high.
I mean, I would only think it could be a thousand or so.
Knock the 3 zeros off that.
One?
One.
That's still more than I would expect to have been sold. But no, like the funny thing is that between the Wii and the Nintendo Switch, which had huge sales, the Wii U is one of the worst selling consoles.
Which I don't understand. I own a Wii U. It's a decent console. It's basically the Wii on steroids. Which that's the problem is everyone bought a Wii. And they were like, well, let's just kind of follow in that trend. And everyone already owned a Wii. So that's my personal theory on it. So yeah, I own one. I think it's great. But I also, if I can get the money together, plan on buying a Switch at some point because I really want to play the new Mario game.
Yeah, I need to get
Wait
one
a
to.
minute.
I want to play the.
Owen has a Switch, doesn't he?
Yes,
Hmm.
I want to play the.
I'll just buy the game and borrow a Switch.
He plays the Switch a lot though.
Well,
I want to get one.
I'll let him play it too.
I want. I want to get one here.
I'm not. I'm not greedy.
Because I want to get the Metroid Dread. Because side-scrolling action.
Yeah.
As much as I like Metroid Prime, I do better with the traditional side-scrolling. So.
But yeah, well, the new Mario game is gonna be like that for the most part. There's one of those things that you can hit like in the levels that like screw with things that turn it into a top. They'll turn that part to like a top down. So, but for the most part, it's a side scroller.
Yeah.
But it looks really cool. Like they definitely apparently like Nintendo told them just go wild, and they did. So, and apparently like that's coming out within like a week of like the new Sonic game also. So the late '80s, early '90s rivalry is apparently back for 1 week only.
Yeah, but the thing is that they're all on Nintendo platforms, so
Yeah, well,
there is no Sega Nintendo rivalry anymore.
I meant Mario and Sonic.
Oh, sorry. Well, but I meant Nintendo and Sega, but even.
Yeah.
No,
Anyway.
Now that will sell right.
But yeah, that's about all I've got, I think, Jim. I'll double check my phone, but if you got anything,
I'm trying to think if there's any other.
It's been a busy week in the pop culture and nothing else.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have a whole lot. It's been a busy week of work and trying to get things worked out and.
Yeah, I got a lot of time to listen to YouTube whenever I'm driving back and forth.
Well, normally I listen to a lot when I'm working, but I've been going into the office and.
Oh, yeah, well, it's not just Walmart. Apparently, Best Buy is also going to stop selling physical games too, like the same article. So.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate thing because again, I know if you haven't went back and watched our unboxing of the Warcraft 2 Beyond the Dark Portal expansion there's just a thing that's going to be lost with all of the digital media. Now, don't get me wrong. Well, first of all, it should be cheaper. I get they have servers and
yeah, the show I was watching, that was one of the things they're like, oh, we were promised it'd be cheaper, and like it sure as shit isn't. Like it's the same price or more, and where's the savings? Like you're not printing a physical disc anymore. Of course, they also went into the whole like they probably should have abandoned the discs a generation ago and done like the Switch because the flash cards run faster.
Yeah.
Because there's no load time essentially, and you can put in a game on a thing that's
yeah,
an inch by an inch that fits in your pocket, so you can lose it. So you got to buy a new one. But yeah, like they don't scratch like discs, although they could just randomly stop working.
Well, they would also solve the one problem that everybody has, and that's day one patches.
Yeah.
Because they release games unfinished.
Yeah, that's a whole other problem.
But no, it's an end of an era. I mean, I hate to see it go, but the great thing is though is I still bet there's still going to be a collector's market. There's still going to be a limited run release of games and stuff like that. But to your point, next generation consoles more than likely probably won't have any physical media at all. and it will be completely a digital storefront. I mean, hell, it has to be just about now because even if it, even if you have the physical copy of the game, almost every game now requires you to have an internet connection of some sort to download crap, to sign in for things,
Yeah.
and do all of that. So I don't know. It's a time lost. The allure of actually going to the game store and buying games, seeing all the stuff on the shelf, bringing it home, finding out it's crap, knowing that you can't take it back, like Mega Man for DOS.
Yeah.
Um,
So you mentioned EA, and I got some wires crossed, but you know that Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard.
I did not.
Yeah. So I thought it was EA, but it's Activision Blizzard. So yeah. So yeah, another massive merger that like probably shouldn't have been okayed by the SEC, but as near as I can tell, they don't care.
Yeah, I mean they're not gonna have a monopoly on it yet.
No, no, they need to get old ruin everything to do that.
Yeah, EA's the let's buy the company, have them put out one game.
We'll have them put out whatever game they're working on, and then we'll make a cash grab sequel, and then we'll monetize the shit out of the third one, and then we'll close it.
Well, no, yeah, normally it's like, oh, well, you didn't meet our numbers. You're like, these numbers were not obtainable. Our game was never meant to be this. Like, yeah, well, too bad. And we're shutting your company down. We're gonna take your assets and we're gonna give it to our
We're gonna turn you
in-house
into a
team.
terrible phone game.
Yes. Good luck. Do your mobile.
Yeah, well, that was one thing that they brought up in that discussion as far as the percentage of games that are digital. It didn't specify if that included phone games because that would heavily weight it towards digital. And that's also where they come up with some of these phony numbers you see for games sometimes. Like, oh, like X percentage of people over here play games. Like, no, they don't own a console. They play games on their phone. That should be a whole separate category, just so we're all clear on what these games are. Because phone games and console games are not the same
Yes.
at all.
People are like, oh, I'm a gamer. What do you do? I play Candy Crush.
It's like, well, I mean, you kind of are. You do play games, but that's not what any of us mean. You know,
Yeah. No.
so I don't view that as like elitism like I do with the Lego stuff. That's pure elitist snobism, and I'm fine with it. But like the video game thing, no. Like it's either a console or a handheld or something. Now I suppose if you're playing like Chrono Trigger on your phone or something, I'll let that slide because that's a real video game. But most of them are not. You know, like Tetris. Okay, Tetris is a real game. Tetris is one of the highest selling games ever. Guy that invented it never saw a penny from it. You knew that, right?
What?
The guy that invented it never saw any money from it. Tetris.
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, because he made it while the Soviet system was still in place. So whoever, I don't remember who it was that bought the rights, like bought them from like the Soviet government. And then the Soviet system collapsed and that guy was just kind of like left holding the bag. I think he did make another game though that he made money off of. But yeah, I'm pretty sure if I recall from what I've read, he didn't see anything from Tetris. And Tetris has sold like hundreds of millions of copies once you take it across all the platforms and sequels and everything. I mean, it's huge. There's a whole movie about it. It was on, but it's on like Apple Cinema, which I'm not going to subscribe to.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, this actually looks like a good movie. I'd like to see this. I hope they like put it out on DVD or something someday. They won't because it's Apple. I'll have to buy like a specific player for it that'll only play Apple movies because Apple's stupid like that.
Oh, I've got a problem that I got to try to figure out.
Not like this Apple from Angry Orchard. By the way, they're not a sponsor or anything. I just wanted, in case anyone was curious.
Yeah, I've got Sinful Apple.
Yeah,
It was Apple.
I got baked apple pie. Like I get a little bit of it. This definitely tastes different from a regular Angry Orchard, but I'm not getting a lot of cinnamon like I expected from the apple pie. Although I suppose I should have really expected it from that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, just it's not looking good. But on the flip side, your video game collection is probably going to start being worth more and more money as there's less options to buy physical media, and people are going to still want it.
Yeah. Oh, there's a talk.
Maybe my DVD collection will start be worth some money.
At some point,
I could start a video store, folks. I have 600 some odd movies on DVD. I'm not making that up. Like, it's huge. Most of them should work too.
and we could do a video game rental store.
Yeah. Hell, if people around here at VCRs, I've got 100 some odd movies on VHS tape because I bought a shitload of them from the video store whenever they closed. Hell, I never did watch any of them, but I've got them. By God, they're probably disintegrating as we speak
Probably.
because those do not last forever. Just remember, the only thing that lasts forever is the earth and sky. That's what Kansas had to say about the topic anyway. Dust in the wind. That's all we are.
Dust in the wind.
Oh my God. The Highlander TV series pissed me off so much with that song. The end of the first season, like I was watching on USA, so it was like day after, just like boom, 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 episodes, like one after another.
Yeah.
And it comes to the season finale. That's where you're first introduced to the Watchers. One of them has abducted Tessa, who was Duncan's girlfriend. She was mortal. And he did that to draw Duncan in to kill him, because they know about the immortals. So he goes in, kills the guy, sets her free, and is like, go out to the car, I'm going to look around and like find like his shit here on his computer and his books and everything. And the kid that he had kind of taken in, Richie, goes out there with her. He's sitting there doing the stuff. Some rando guy comes up and shoots both of them, like to rob them, even though it looked like it was a pretty nice neighborhood. Like this whole scene doesn't make any sense. Duncan goes out there, cuts to commercial, cuts back. Well, he's standing there. Richie's standing there with him. He's like, all right, well, things weren't that bad. They're standing there in Tessa's art gallery. Oh, but then we have the montage of moments throughout the season while Dust in the Wind is playing. And I'm just like, son of a bitch, she died. And Highlanders are going to pull with my heartstrings with goddamn Dust in the Wind here. Brought a tear to my eye, Jim. I'm not going to lie. A couple, in fact. So, and then Duncan like leaves and is like, sell it all, Richie. I don't want to see any of it again. And I was like, you goddamn show. You made me cry, even though I don't care about anyone in this show. So I didn't watch like the next 3 weeks of the show. It pissed me off that much. Then I had to figure out what happened when I finally caved and jumped back in.
So, question. So obviously, when one Highlander person chops off the other Highlander person's head, they absorb their power. Yeah. What happens if you're not a Highlander person? You chop off a Highlander's head. Do you absorb their power?
No, but the electrical storm still happens.
And nobody absorbs their power.
Right, it just dissipates. Unless there's another immortal, like, close by. Then, like, it just kind of goes into them.
And that sucks. That'd be great if it was just like, I just chop this guy's head off. Like,
and then you become an immortal?
Yes. Yeah. That's how it should be.
Well, yeah, the way it works is, like, they're all destined to be immortal, like, from the moment they're born. Once they die a violent death of some kind, they'll become an immortal. If they just die of old age, they won't. It's got to be something like murders them, and then they're locked that age forever. Because in the show, they come across a kid who became an immortal. He was like a drummer in the Civil War and, got a bullet. And now he's been a kid for like 150 years. So, yeah, he was a little bastard, too. Like, I didn't shed a tear when they killed him.
They chop his head off?
I think they did.
Yes. Or his power.
They might not have. I don't remember. But I know Duncan comes across, like, a real threat eventually. Because, like, most of the guys in the show he can handle. But eventually they come across... there's one of the immortals is supposed to be the oldest one out there. And he's hiding as one of the Watchers. Like, the Watchers don't realize one of the people among their ranks is an immortal, watching them from the inside. And he's been around since, like, the Bronze Age. And there's 3 other guys that have been around that long, too, who collectively used to call themselves the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And the other 3 are, like, just evil incarnate. This guy, like, converted at some point to not so evil. And yeah, like, that guy was powerful when Duncan killed him. And then the guy in the 4th movie is pretty powerful. It's like the Watchers, like, essentially keep track of how many the other immortals have killed. Duncan and Connor in, like, the 200 some odd range. This guy's killed, like, 650 some odd other immortals. And old Joe Dawson's just like, you guys aren't even in the same league here. Like, I would just walk away run and hide, do something. Like, if he wants you dead, he's going to kill you. And it doesn't turn out that way, though, obviously, but that was only because Connor sacrificed himself, have Duncan kill him, and there, with their powers combined, they formed Captain Immortal and, went and killed the other guy. Yeah, that movie has the most deceptive trailers I've ever seen. Like, the main bad guy is shown clearly having assorted magical powers. He doesn't do dick like that in the entire movie. Like, they just made scenes just for the damn trailer. Because, like, Highlander 3 established that magic's a thing, because the main bad guy had magic powers in that movie. Old Mario Van Peebles. Because Connor definitely, like, cuts him in half at the waist at one point, and they're on, like, a catwalk, and he just, like, grabs the guardrails while his legs keep going, and then he, like, flips around, his legs turn around and come back and, like, seal back together, and he starts fighting again, and Connor's like, oh, that's not good.
Usually that's not.
Yeah, because, I mean, how are you going to stop that? Other than, taking his head, which he eventually did.
So.
Yeah. Some Highlander lore for you folks there. That might come in handy whenever the Henry Cavill movie comes out in a few years. Hopefully.
He's been The Witcher. Now he gets to be the Highlander.
Yes, and it sounds like they're planning multiple movies. So, like, the first one isn't just going to be like, oh, let's have The Gathering. They're like, oh, damn, this made money. How do we make a sequel? It's going to build towards The Gathering. So, and it's going to incorporate some of the lore from the show, like the Watchers and stuff like that. So,
You have Ramirez in it.
I'm assuming, obviously not Sean Connery, because he, in fact, was not immortal. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Though, are they going to have him portray, hopefully, a new character or not?
I'm assuming it's going to be Connor again, but that's just an assumption. Because the name comes from the fact that Connor's from Scotland. It has nothing to do with the Immortals. They're just called Immortals. Like, so if you're going to call it Highlander, like, he's going to have to be a Scottish guy. That's,
Is he... Henry Cavill, is he Scottish?
No, I don't think so. He's British, though.
I think he's British. That's why I wonder if he's going to play a British guy.
Well, I mean, he could. There's a Highlander anime movie. You ever seen that by any chance?
No.
Pretty good. So this guy, he's been around since, like, the Roman invasion of England, and, like, one of the Romans is also an immortal, and so it's them fighting, like, throughout the ages and, like, into the future, into, like, robot future stuff. Whenever the other guy's trying to basically rebuild the Roman Empire with, like, robots in the future, and the other guy's like, I don't think so. So yeah, it involves, like, one woman gets reincarnated at one point, and it's actually really good. So
yeah, Clancy Brown.
No, Clancy Brown. Two characters have nothing to do with the other characters. There's also a Highlander cartoon that was made for kids. It's on USA at one point. It also had Ramirez, brought back again. Some new guy from Clan MacLeod. And the world at that point is like some post-apocalyptic wasteland. There's one immortal who rules over most of it. I think his name is Cortan. And the show kind of skirts around the whole, like, decapitation things. Like, the immortals can willingly give up their power. And that's how he gets most of his powers. Like, they find other immortals, and Cortan shows up. It's like, hey, you got two choices. Like, you want to keep living or, like, die? Although I think a few of them chose the other option. And conveniently, they went off screen, and then there was a big electric show kind of stuff. So, yeah. I was just amazed that, like, hey, let's take this movie whose core concept is chopping people's heads off and make a kid's cartoon out of it.
They did it with Mortal Kombat.
Or, like, how in the 90s, Kenner was like, you know what we need? Let's make some figures based on the Alien and Predator franchises who only have R-rated entries in a graphically violent video game. Let's go for it. And hey, those worked out. Let's throw the Terminator into the mix too, which also only has R-rated entries full of graphic violence. Some of which just came out at that point, like Terminator 2, and Predator 2, and Alien 3. It's just like, yeah, sure, let's do that. And let's use the characters from the movies, because clearly the kids have seen them. It's like Ripley and Apone and Hicks, and, like, let's ignore the fact that most of these characters died in Aliens or elsewhere.
Yeah, well, especially if they made the alien with real tail up the...
Yeah, no, they did not.
Oh, jeez. Well, anyways.
Yeah. On that note. So, you got anything else, Jim?
No, I'm good. I'm
All
good.
right. I think we probably rambled on about the woes of two major corporations enough tonight.
Yeah, well, at least we sprinkle in some other franchise stuff in there to brighten the mood.
Well, maybe.
But
So, yeah, folks, hopefully you stuck with us this long. If you did, we appreciate it. We appreciate all you folks that watch these and have been subscribing to us.
and I've been
Uh,
checking throughout the podcast here to see if we've
See if we crossed the 300 mark.
see if we've crossed the 300 mark. We're not. We're not. We're still at 299. So
Yeah, no, I don't expect it to just like magically happen while we're recording. Although, like the one that happened just before we started, so maybe. But no, we've hit a slowdown, but that happens. We have our ups and downs. But yeah, if you haven't seen them, we've been putting out the shorts. Now those are usually clips from the podcast where I can find where we've done like something in the span of a minute. The one I just put up today was the Lego build from the Lego build video that I sped up even more to make it fit into a minute. It's gonna be real fun where I build like an actual big set that takes like an hour and a half to build, and then I speed it up and then speed it up again to make it under a minute.
well, I mean the one Death Star, it took us months to build because it's just like you would spend like 30 minutes, an hour, whatever, doing a couple bags, and there were like 20 bags, so it was just like okay, I'm just trying to find enough time in there, and then not getting burnt out on it, and
No, getting burnout, that's the key. Maximum burnout. So I build my Lego sets. I go until it's done or until I fall asleep.
there you go.
Then when I wake up and start again. Or I get coffee then start again. Just depends. So anyway, should have said this at the beginning. Because I don't know if anyone's going to be listening at this point, but just in case you are, we are still working on video number 2 for the Lego thing.
Yep.
And I've been thinking about some other like shorter Lego videos where we can show off like how to do certain things with Lego blocks. They'll be pretty short because it's gonna be like here with these 12 pieces, you can make this kind of architectural flourish kind of thing. So if anyone's got any interest in that, let us know. We're gonna do it anyway, but you know,
If there's anything in particular, you want
yeah, it'd be nice to know if there is actually an audience that I think there is, but we'll find out. But other than that, Jim, I'm good. So
yep. Also, so I think, do we already do the like, share, comment, subscribe?
it's YouTube, they know.
Yes.
But just in case you don't, we appreciate likes, shares, subscribes, comments. I always appreciate the comments. I try to respond to all of them when I can. So,
Right.
still randomly getting comments on a video I made 7 months ago. Keep responding to those. But anyway, thank you folks for watching.
And yeah, I think we'll end this meeting of the Geek Ball, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yep. See you out there.